What's going on, guys? King Trats here, back another video on the channel, and today we made butter shrimp penne. Yes, I've done a butter chicken pasta before, but I had shrimp, I had, my man paddock. I'll get into the whole details, but it smells delicious. Also, if you saw the title, it's actually not butter curry sauce, it is actually Rogan Josh curry sauce, which I saw this in the store. If you know my paddock, my man paddock, I always mispronounce it, I hope I did it or didn't, but he has a whole bunch of jarred sauces with like Indian stuff on it, and I'm looking in the aisle and I'm like, why does Joe Rogan have pasta sauce? So I looked into it. It's called Rogan Josh curry, and I found it. I've never tried it yet. It does smell good. I'm going to tell you what Rogan Josh curry actually is. Rogan means clarified butter or oil in Persian, or red in Hindi, and Josh refers to passion, fiery and hot. So this dish is all about cooking in an oil-based sauce with an intense heat. Rogan Josh was introduced to Kashmir by the Mughals, which cuisine was influenced by Persian cuisine. That is very good to know, because I thought he was going to be talking about eating like elk or something, and Joe Rogan's, yeah, we eat elk, but that's what it is. The easiest stuff in the world to make, because the sauce comes from a jar. We just took our penne, obviously we cooked that, and then we put it in some cold water, so we just shocked it so it didn't overcook. Then we took our shrimp, which I already deturred. We seasoned that just with garlic powder, chili powder, onion powder, just the bare basics, and we cooked that until they were obviously ready to go. Took that off in the pan, took our Rogan Josh, I want to say Joe Rogan so bad, put that into our pan, let that simmer for a bit. Once we got that going, so it got a nice consistency, we just added our pasta back into it, tossed it, added the shrimp back into it, tossed it, put it in a plate, and put some chives on top to look like I know what I'm doing. And that is what you see today. But we are here for another reason. If you saw the thumbnail, this is what we are doing today. Heavily requested amongst my movie goers with the tier things that we're doing. We are actually going to rank all of the MCU films now. This one was heavily requested. I said I wanted to watch a few more just so that I could get a better feel on the ranking tiers, but we're doing it tier style. We will have our GOAT as usual, but the tiers will break down as S, A, B, C, and trash. There are a few trash MCU movies in my opinion, but let me try this pasta for, I hold this up for y'all. I want to hold it up again. Look at that. Man, the drool is real. I have a spoon and a fork. I will probably switch to a spoon halfway through, but I don't have a plastic spoon, and I don't, y'all get mad when off my teeth, so just bear with me as I stab. Penne with a fork sucks. I hate this. See, look, shrimp, forks. Hey, I'm so ready to try this though. Man, Joe Rogan got some good sauce. This is good. Spicy, definitely, but super flavorful. A lot of aromatics. Wow. This is why I'll be stabbing for 3 years when I get penne. Okay. Let's rank these movies. Before I get into it, I always want to have that disclaimer. I love friendly debates with me and you guys, and amongst you guys, because again, you guys go at it in the comments, but just a reminder, no one's opinion is stupid. Always gotta say that. If you like a movie and I didn't, or if you thought a movie belonged in a different tier, it's all love. Remember, keep it friendly. Obviously, yes, hi me, but I'm talking amongst yourselves more than anything. Of course, drop anything else that you want to see rankings. I saw a lot of different stuff, and I'm starting to make more lists, so this is a W. Let's get into the MCU. One of the best series of any movie genre. Wildly popular, some of the highest selling movies of all time when it comes to theaters. Of course, I'm not going to get into those. We're going to start with our tiers. Let me get these out of the way. This tier is called I Don't Care, and I genuinely don't care. I went back and watched some of these, and I actually put / barely watch because I just couldn't get into them. I don't feel sorry for that. I'm not just going to mindlessly like some MCU films. So let me get these out of the way with a brief explanation of each. Let's start off with a movie that a lot of people didn't like, Captain Marvel. I tried. I really tried. I don't care. In the words of Stephen A. Smith, in the meme, we don't care. We don't care. There's just nothing to be said about it. Captain Marvel as a superhero, nothing to do with the actress. You didn't even, she was so... You could have made the entire Avengers series and all the other movies, Endgame, Infinity War, and not used her. I know she's important in comic book lore, but for the movie's sake, I just couldn't get into it. Now these, are where we start to get dicey, and a lot of people are probably gonna get mad at these because some people love these and I absolutely do not. But I'm gonna go with Black Widow. I didn't even know it came out when it came out. They did my girl Scarlett Johansson. That was a dirty. They didn't give it a right release. It just didn't have the fanfare. And when I watched it again, I just couldn't get into it. Next up, we have both of the Guardians of the Galaxy films. People love them. I don't. I don't even like Chris Pratt. I'm sorry. From what I heard, he's actually a douche of a human being. Again, I don't know him personally. I'm just telling you all the things that I've read. And he really pisses me off in Infinity War, but that's a part of the story. I tried to watch those a couple of times. I do like Groot. I like Bradley Cooper's little man character. But all in all, again, a lot of those peripheral Avengers MCU films, I just don't care. And I can't put them in a tier respectfully because I don't care. That's going to get me in so much trouble. WandaVision. Same category. I watched like 1 or 2 episodes and was like, where's this story going? I just didn't need it. Cool idea. I like Paul Bettany. I like Vision. I even like Wanda Maximoff. Some reason, standalone, I just don't care. Same thing as Hawkeye. Look, Jeremy Renner's done some phenomenal work. There's something about Hawkeye in those movies that I'm just like, you and your arrows. I'm sorry. But I just got to get through these. I'm so sorry. The What If thing seems like a cool premise, but I'm not going to lie, I haven't watched it. All of them. The premise seems really cool, but that's where the barely watched thing came into. I think the premise is cool, but I don't really consider that an MCU film. It's more of like a TV show, and it just provides hypotheticals, which is a cool idea, but not enough to be included in my opinion. And I haven't watched Shang-Chi yet. It isn't available to watch. It was in theaters, but I haven't gotten a chance to watch it, so that's also in the watch thing. But let's get into the real tier. We're going to start with trash. There aren't that many trash movies, in my opinion, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Also in this list, and I know in a lot of MCU stuff, they do include the Spider-Man movies, and not just the Tom Holland ones. They're including the Tobey Maguires, and they are including the Andrew Garfield one because they tied it in with the last one they put out. So I don't have a problem with that. I want to rank those anyway because I love all the Spider-Man. Well, okay. No, I don't. That is a lie. Anyway, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Nope. Evangeline Lilly broke my heart when I found out she was on Lost. I just nah. I don't want to trash any of the MCU stuff, but I didn't like the movie. The second one was just like disjointed. I wasn't feeling it. Now, surprisingly, we have 2 Spider-Man films coming. We have The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is with Andrew Garfield. I think Andrew Garfield was a phenomenal Spider-Man. But how they managed to botch putting Jamie Foxx as a villain and making him Electro like that, with that cheesy, the one-liners and the nerdy, it sucked. That movie, I wanted to like that movie. I can spoil these, and you know, they obviously had to get rid of Emma Stone's character, kind of to advance the plot, but they never made another one, and it just, the villain was stupid. The movie was kind of corny. Yeah, just wasn't feeling it at all. And next, this one pains me because to me, this series is one of the best comic book series, but Spider-Man 3 of the Tobey Maguire series. The other 2 movies will be much higher on the list, but this movie in particular, Spider-Man 3, absolutely sucked in my opinion. There was too much going on for me to give a shit about any of the characters. I didn't like how they did my boy James Franco. You had to get rid of him. The Sandman character didn't even really was necessary, and the fact that he just kind of left at the end. Ugh. Topher Grace's Venom. Ugh. Emo Spider-Man. Ugh. The movie was bad, man. I don't care what anybody says. I love the Tobey Maguire series. That movie notwithstanding. I watched the first 2 all the time. That third one was a bag of trash. They tried to do too much, and it ended up sucking. Those are the only 3 trash movies in the MCU. Now we can move on to the C tier. Are movies that are good, but they are not necessarily my favorites. I enjoyed all of these. It's just, there are better movies than it, and if I'm picking a movie within these, I just won't pick these. If they're on, like, I don't even know if I'll watch them. You know what I mean? They're good, but probably wouldn't watch it a bunch of times like the other ones. Starting off, Venom. I love Tom Hardy. I named my dog Bane after Tom Hardy's character. But this movie was good. It just wasn't enough to keep me coming back to it, if that makes sense. I do like Venom as a... Damn, I'm wearing a Venom shirt. I didn't even realize it. Holy shit. But I like Venom as a character. I like kind of the one-liner, kind of like, you know, buddy cop feel that they had. You can include the second one, too, with Carnage, but I'll include them both in here because they're both next to each other. I just feel like the villains weren't enough to make me worry about Venom, as crazy as that sounds. When you see the other villains in the MCU, you're like, man, like, they're in trouble. With this, I just didn't care enough about the villains to make the hero, even though Venom's an anti-hero, good enough. But there are some good parts about the movie. Again, I think Venom's actually pretty funny with his one-liners and how he acts, but some of the, like, I want to eat them is a little stupid. And Carnage, I love Woody Harrelson. I don't know why it didn't work as Carnage. It just didn't. I kept looking at his stupid toupee in his head. I just watched it, too. I swear, I just watched it this Sunday. And while it's good, I wouldn't watch it again, which is why it's a C-tier movie, both of them. Next up, we have The Amazing Spider-Man 1, which is the Andrew Garfield series. Again, I think Andrew Garfield's a good Spider-Man. I think the Spider-Man movie is good. The Killer Croc character, to me, to have a good MCU film, it's got to be everything. The hero was good. I think that the script was decent, but again, that Killer Croc villain just didn't move me. It just didn't, I don't know. They just, like, botched the villains. Like, villains need to be more well-rounded, and there has to be good villains in a good MCU film, in my opinion. Moving right along, we have Thor. Specifically the second one, which is The Dark World. Same thing. The villain didn't care about the elves. Again, there's some good parts in the movie. And I'm not saying the movie sucked. It didn't. But compared to the other two, it's nowhere near as good. And, you know, the Ether was an okay premise. I didn't care. The saving grace of those Thor movies is Thor himself. Natalie Portman's cool, and obviously Loki, and all those movies was just like, dude, I love Loki. Like, Loki is an awesome villain, but that's my reasons why I didn't like it, was that the villain just wasn't good enough. Moving right along to Ant-Man, I think Ant-Man's a good movie, the first one. There's just, I don't know. Michael Douglas was cool, the Ant-Man premise, the Pym particles, it was cool, but I never have been like, yo, I want to go watch Ant-Man. I'm sorry. It's just not good enough in the MCU. Like, there's too many good films in this for this to be any higher than this, in my opinion. This one's going to piss everybody off. I have all three Tom Holland Spider-Man films in the C tier. People love No Way Home. I didn't. I feel like the movie was a bunch of fan service. I'm sorry to say it. The movie just, it had Toby in it, it had Andrew Garfield in it, but so... I've already seen that. It showed me nothing really that was out of the ordinary. The whole multiverse thing to me is just really, I just think they're okay. They're not great. I've watched all of those a grand total of twice, which is ridiculous for MCU films. I know a lot of people are going to give me stick for that. Tom Holland, damn, I don't want to say this. He's kind of annoying in Spider-Man. I get he's the younger version, but his whole, like, Mrs. Stark, like, I don't know. I know that people are going to give me shit for these three. They're all three in my C tier. They're not my favorite. They're okay. Michael Keaton, the Falcon, it's okay. You know, like, all the villains are okay. Just, like, you recycled all of the good villains from the Sam Raimi movies because you knew that was going to be dope, and you had fan service, which people loved, of course. I did. But when I think about the movie itself, it's really not that good. But those are my C tier movies. I know I pissed a lot of people off, but stay with me. Let's move right along to our B tier. These are all very, very good movies. Very good movies. Their only problem is they're just not as good as the other ones. You get what I'm saying? I don't necessarily have complaints. I can tell you why when I get to them, why I think they're not necessarily up to snuff with the other ones, but I'm going to start off and piss more people off. Civil War, Captain America. The infighting thing was cool, that they were kind of split up, but that helmet zero, mid. It's just, it's a good movie. The fight and everything, but again, back to my whole premise about villains. He was kind of devious, yes, but we've seen devious, and there's certain villains, which I'll get to, that are way more devious, as far as like scheming, that were a lot more fearful. Now, I know it was his job to turn them against each other, and that was the point of the film, but the film just kind of seemed like it was just a setup film. Like it was just getting all of the stuff in order so we can get on to the real stories. That's the way it felt to me when I watched it. When I was done, I was like, this is cool, but it left with a kind of a, I can't wait to see the next one, middle trilogy of a film, which to me is a common like mistake with middle films, that they just kind of feel undone. But still, a very good movie. Introduces to a lot of different characters, and I enjoyed it. It's just not better than the next. Next up, the first Avengers film that we have on here, The Age of Ultron. I actually really liked Ultron. I'm one of the few people that actually liked Ultron. I just felt like the movie kind of dragged a little bit. These are the cons. And the whole Sokovia thing just didn't seem like... This is weird because it's a comic book. It just didn't seem believable. Is that the right word? I like... Again, I'm nitpicking these movies. I think they're all good. All the Avenger films are good. But there's just something missing about that film compared to these other films, which I kind of got into. That something, like they left an Ultron, there was a whole bunch of Ultrons, and I get he was everywhere. I don't just anyway, moving right along. This one pained me to put here. Spider-Man 2. Its only crime is it's not the other Spider-Man, as bad as it sounds. I like Doc Ock. I thought he was a great villain. For some reason, though, I don't like when villains redeem themselves. Like, stick to your shit, man. He wasn't necessarily like a bad villain, like he had the claws talking to him, but he wasn't like evil, if that makes sense. But there's this an overall flimsiness. It's a weird, so like, to that one, as again opposed to just not being as good as the other ones, and that's really its only crime. I have to nitpick with these when I start getting up here. Next is Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is very good. It's just, as a standalone, I enjoyed the story, and I think Benedict Cumberbatch is a fantastic Doctor Strange. I think the story fits. It just doesn't compare to the other ones. There's really nothing wrong with it. Again, the villain, good, but not great. And when you see the other ones, they're just great on both sides. It's tough to compete with those. Right along, Iron Man 3, I've talked about this one before. Those damn suits. I don't like all the suits. And it was like, at the end there were just a whole bunch of suits. And extremists. And suits. And more suits. That's the whole movie. I know some people argue with that. Oh, that's the worst Iron Man. You know? Didn't need Pepper Potts fighting either. I would have rather have her save the day just being Pepper Potts. She didn't need to do that because she was a badass as it was. Again, these are all my opinions. But B tier still means it's very good. Didn't say it sucked. Thor Ragnarok. This one pained me too, man. I love Thor Ragnarok. Most people, Thor Ragnarok is the best Thor. Not to me. I love this Thor. I think that, what the hell is it, Kate Blanchett? Awesome villain. When she like basically shits on his hammer, I'm like, oh, alright. But I didn't like when it started going off into the other planets and I don't know, it just didn't, it had this weird feel with the theme song, and it just didn't feel Thor to me. I don't know why. But it didn't. Look, the first Thor is better, man. I don't care what anybody says. The OG Thor is the best one. Anyway, we have Loki. It's not finished yet. It's still only crime. When Loki's finished and the story is finished, I'll have a better... But it's hard to talk about a show that's in the middle of being a show. It's still on, so I don't want to spoil it. But Tom Hiddleston, he was made to play Loki. He's awesome at it. The only reason that it's not up in the A and the S tier is because it's not done. but it was that good that I actually put it up there. I don't want to spoil it for anybody else. But we're going to move on to the A tier. We are getting into really, really dope movies. First up, we have Iron Man 2. I loved Iron Man 2. I still think I did my boy Terrence Howard wrong. But overall, the only con I have about this movie is Mickey Rourke. I like Mickey Rourke. I got annoyed listening to him all the time. He's like, "You have my birth." I'm just like, shut up. And the tattoo, it was good though. I love that movie. That's the only con I have about it, truthfully. Next up, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Elite movie. It's elite. I love the Winter Soldier. I love the idea of the Winter Soldier. For some reason, when they unmask anybody that has a mask on for the beginning of the movie, it makes them less of a badass. I love the fact that it was Bucky, which I knew already, obviously, if you read the comics, but it's just not S tier. All these movies are still really good. Next up, we have the OG Thor. I love the OG Thor. I do. I love the OG Thor. I don't really have any problems with it. It just can't be in the S tier. Somebody had to go. I can't have 50 S tier movies. And it's hard to rank these because they're all really, really good. I have to reiterate again, even the C tier movies I enjoy. With that being said, moving right along, one more. This one's going to piss a lot of people off again. I feel like I say that a lot. Avengers Endgame. The second half of Avengers, obviously, the double with Infinity War and Endgame was a little bit of a letdown for me. Still truly an elite movie. I just feel like they could have did better with finishing Thanos. That's all. Even though it felt satisfying, it was all over. And I didn't necessarily enjoy the plan to reverse the snap. I just thought it was like, I feel like there could have been an easier way. But I understand that it had to make sense in that universe. I'm just talking about the writing of it. But other than that, Avengers Endgame is obviously one of the best movies in the MCU. But I can't put both Avengers, again, in the S tier. So I had to knock one down. And trust me, I sat and stared at these lists for a very long time. But somebody had to be in the A tier because there can't be 48 S tier movies. It just can't go that way. At number 6, original Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. That Spider-Man, for me, it is what kicked off the comic book epic film, if you will. I remember going to watch it in the movies. Tobey Maguire, obviously how he gets bit by the spider, the backstory. The Green Goblin villain was awesome. Willem Dafoe is he just looks like a guy. He looks like a villain. And he's very good at it. Even Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane, James Franco as Harry Osborn, everything about that movie was great. This is a tough crowd. And, you know, my millennials, I always talk about it because generations matter when it comes to movies. I think where you are in life, kind of like it always brings you back to a certain era. And that movie for me, even that damn Nickelback song with Chad Kroeger in the beginning, like Hero, the whole movie, the whole ambiance was dope. And it's kicked off people realizing that comic books can make amazing movies. Because I didn't even talk about the MCU when it comes to X-Men. X-Men was in that same era. People forget about X-Men. Not us. But it's not on this list. Our top 5 Avengers movies, MCU movies, I should say, ever. At number 5, we're going to start with the original Avengers. When it came out, again, this is S tier. When it came out, it was like, you all know, like you had to be there when the Avengers came out. I think Loki was an amazing villain. That's what matters. All of the characters mattered. Seeing all of them finally gang up together. You know, they play that theme song, which everybody knows now, and they got that little panning around camera. It was an epic, epic movie. It's well deserved of all the accolades that it has, and I don't have complaints about Avengers. Somebody had to be 5. Number 4. Captain America. The first one. The first Avenger, I should say. I love the first Captain America. I think it's better than all the other Captain Americas. The introduction of Chris Evans as Captain America, again, he seems tailor-made for the role. watching and seeing how he comes to be, where he comes from, you know, how he was a hero, where he got the suit from, you know, everything about that movie, even the Red Skull, the Hydra thing, everything about that movie is just awesome. And I feel like a lot of people underrate that first Captain America, but to me, it is truly one of the best comic book movies, period. And it's number 4 because the other 3 were just that good. My number 3, Black Panther. I love Black Panther. Some people have issues with Black Panther. I don't know why. I still think Killmonger is one of the best villains created in the MCU. He had a clear purpose, he had a reason why he wanted to do it, and you even kind of agreed with it at times. That makes for a good villain. Yes, he was irrational, a little bit of rage, but you actually felt like, because he did kick the shit out of the Black Panther. That makes a great villain to me. There's a logic, there's a reason, he thinks he's justified, and at times you're like, is he wrong? He even went out like a G, right? They said we probably could fix you. He said, nah, just bury me in the ocean. My ancestors. Wakanda forever. You know I'm with it. Chadwick Boseman, great job as a Black Panther. May he rest in peace. I think he did an epic job. I love the suit. I love Wakanda as a whole. I feel like, especially me, obviously, as a black person, as a black male, I feel like you didn't get a lot of superheroes that you felt like you could be, you could look up to. I know some people might not get that, but obviously if you're black, you probably do. Growing up, you saw Superman, you saw Spider-Man, you know, you saw Iron Man, you get what I'm saying. There just weren't a lot to go from with us. Like, who we have? Steel? Like, Shaq played Steel? You know what I'm saying? So, to finally get something where little kids could feel like you could be a superhero, but he looked like you, was epic. And to see it all come together with a predominantly, again, black cast is just like, for me, I wish that movie would have come out when I was a child, because it probably would have been number 1. But even now, seeing it, it was just so cool and so awesome to see it all come together that way. I think the story was well written. I think it makes sense. I just loved everything about the movie. Its only crime, again, is that these other 2 are just ridiculously, ridiculously good. So moving right along to number 2, a lot of people's favorite, and I don't blame you, Iron Man, the first one. This movie is solely necessary. It was the sole driving force, in my opinion, on why the MCU kicked off so popular. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, he was perfect. Again, they casted these so well, but him as Iron Man, his wisecracking, his one-liners, his antics, you know, his persona just fit. And this movie, seeing how the suit was made it kind of believable, even though it's not supposed to be like 100% believable. The Stain villain, obviously, Jeff Bridges, made sense as a first movie villain. The first Iron Man is like the Batman in that, whatever will be the Batman trilogy, where it just kicked off so well that you're like, man, I hope they don't screw this up. And it kickstarted a cinematic universe that obviously turned into all of this. So I just have to give credit where it's due. It is an absolutely amazing movie. And when I want to watch an MCU movie, it's the one that I watch second to most. But now we're getting to our number 1, to me, the greatest Marvel cinematic movie of all time, and that is Avengers Infinity War. I've said this before, and I will say it again. Thanos is probably the greatest comic book movie villain, possibly villain in any movie. It's the first time that you've ever watched a movie, in my opinion, where you saw the villain and you were like, excuse my language, but they're fucked. Like, he walked into the movie and you were like, oh, hell nah, bro. Like, you know what I'm talking about. From the very beginning, when they are on the ship, obviously, all the Asgardians is Thor's there and Loki's there. And he just, like, I can give spoilers now, because you've all seen this by now. Spoiler alert. Hulk goes to fight him, and Hulk gets a few licks in, and my man, this lanky wizard, I forget his name right now because I'm tired again, is like, let him have his fun. And you're like, what you mean? And he kind of just turns around and just mollywops the Hulk so bad that the Hulk didn't want to be the Hulk no more. Then he snaps Loki's neck. And it just, Like, he was just an unstoppable force. And in his head, he thought he was, and he wasn't, doing the right thing. Does some of the things he said make sense? Yes, you don't have to kill half of a civilization, anybody, for balance, but he really believed it. And you believe that he believed it. Obviously, with all the Avengers, you know the heroes are great, but the story was great. Him collecting the Infinity Stones, you actually were on edge watching the entire movie because you didn't know what the hell was going to happen next. I remember the first time I watched it and seeing kind of like that climax scene when he gets to Wakanda, and you expect them to save the day, and then he yanks this last stone out of Vision's head because he reverses time because you thought they won, and you're like, oh, good. And he's like, nope, he yanks the stone out of his head, and then Thor comes in, and you think they won again. And you know the story. He gets the axe, throws it at Thanos. Thanos is mortally wounded at this point, and he says, you should have aimed for the head, and that famous snap, you know this is the snap heard around the world, literally. The movie is epic. It's so well written. It's so, again, when you see a lot of my rankings, you'll notice that I enjoy movies that don't necessarily have a happy ending because everyone expects a happy ending. Like, things don't always end well when you have a true villain. And in this case, even though you knew that they were going to come back in Endgame and save the day, I know myself and a lot of people after they watched that movie were like, how the hell are they going to come back from this? You get what I'm saying? And then that final scene of the movie where you see I'm waxing poetic about Thanos. I love Thanos. Like, again, I'm a villain person, per se, like, but he was just great. Like, Josh Brolin, the voice, that, you know, his testicle-looking chin, and at the end of the movie, finally, he walks out and he says, I'm going to stare at the sunset, and he does it, and you're like, that's the end? Don't tell me you didn't walk out of Infinity War being like, how the hell are they going to come back from this? And then when Endgame came out, you weren't like, that's how they came back from this? That's how I felt. So to me, Infinity War is just God tier. I can watch that movie over and over and over again and see different things in it. I just like when the superhero story doesn't have like a, okay, well, superhero doesn't really get a scratch on him and then kind of, you know, saves the day. I don't like those kind of superhero stories, which is why, and I'm getting way off topic here, which is why I'm one of the few people that think Man of Steel was actually an excellent movie. Because Superman felt real. They made a superhuman, metahuman type of person actually feel real, even though the guy was literally, you know, Superman. And they managed to give him a sense of vulnerability. I like vulnerability in heroes. That's why the Batman resonates with me. That's why Iron Man, he got his heart thing yanked out. Like, I need that. I don't want a superhero who just walks through the whole movie and just sleepwalks and wins. I need that. Very important. And Infinity War is like the epitome of that when it comes to superhero movies. They didn't win. Thanos won. That's good. We need more movies like that. Stop just, oh, well, how can they save the day? With a cheesy one-liner. You know how the superhero's always about to, like, lose, and then they're like, you know, the villain stops and says something, and then the superhero drops, like, a cheesy one-liner, and then it's like, oh, you know, the superhero wins. They reversed that. Love that. Again, with the whole scene, they reversed it, and Thanos said, you should have gone for the head. Bow! Everybody gone. You just watch people. Yeah, Mr. Stark. Oh, God. But that is it for me. Infinity War. If you want to argue with me, I love it. I read all your comments where you don't agree with me. I don't mind that. But that is my list. There's your MCU. We will have more rankings. We will have more content. ASAP. I love Yada hand signs. They made it to YouTube.